Hello, my name is Tanya from Tracing Footsteps, and tonight we're here to talk about my biological great-grandfather, Francis Gilbert Matchett. Francis Gilbert was the third son of James Matchett and Alice Minnie Matchett. His elder brothers were William James Matchett and Herbert Samuel Matchett. Francis, like his brothers, was born in Queensland in 1894. It's believed that he was born in Charters Towers, which is where his family were living at the time. Charters Towers is a mining town, and James, his father, was quite big and predominant in that mining industry. Sadly, as I only came to know of Frank after doing my DNA, we don't have a great deal that we know about his life. We do know that his father passed away when he was about 8 or 9 years old, which wouldn't have been easy for any child. His family moved to Sydney through his teenage years, and then his mother remarried and died by the time he was 19. As a man in his 20s and 30s, he lived with his brothers in Moore Park, and we believe them to have been quite close. At some point, he met Violet Barbara Davies, and together they had my grandfather, Jack. But it's unknown if Frank ever knew about his son. So as I just mentioned, Frank had a son he probably never knew about. Jack was born on the 4th of January 1925, which means that Francis probably met Violet in around about April of 1924. It's believed that Frank probably never knew about his son. Jack grew up with the understanding that Mervyn Leslie Davies was his biological father, which was not found to be incorrect until DNA was done by family members. For example, my dad and 2 of his siblings did their DNA, as did I, and we matched with a whole lot of Matchetts, but no Davies. Frank died of angina pectoris, or tight chest, on the 18th of March in 1929. At the time, he was just 35 years old. There is a small amount of confusion around the name of his father, because on his death certificate, his father's name is listed as William James Matchett, where we know that his father's name was actually only James Matchett. This could have something to do with the fact that his father died when he was so young, and maybe he didn't know, and maybe his siblings didn't know, the true name of their dad. The informant on the death certificate is Herbert Samuel Matchett. That's Francis's middle brother, so the middle child. At the time of Francis's death, William, the eldest brother, had already passed away. Francis was cremated at Rookwood Crematorium. However, we are unsure of where his remains are now placed. I'm now going to read for you 3 short death notices for Francis Gilbert Matchett. Matchett. The friends of the late Francis Gilbert Matchett are invited to attend his funeral, to lead Woodcoffle's Mortuary Chapel, 810 George Street, City, this Wednesday at 9:30 a.m. for the crematorium Rookwood by Road motor funeral. Matchett. Masonic Lodge, Sydney, St Andrew, No. 7. Members of the above and Sister Lodge are invited to attend the funeral of the late brother F.G. Matchett, to leave Woodcoffle's Mortuary Chapel, 810 George Street, City, this Wednesday at 9:30 a.m. for the crematorium Rookwood by Road motor funeral. Funeral train leaves the mortuary station Regent Street, City at 9:33 a.m. Alight at number 4 mortuary in the cemetery. No regalia. Matchett. Members of the New South Wales Masonic Club are kindly invited to attend the funeral of their late brother, Frank Matchett, to leave Woodcoffle's Mortuary Chapel, 810 George Street, City at 9:30 a.m. this day for the crematorium Rookwood motor funeral. There were a few things that stood out to me when I saw these different death notices. The first being that he was a Freemason. That was quite interesting, and is my one hope of trying to find a photograph of him. My intention is to go to the Freemasons Museum and see if there might be any record of him there. Another interesting piece was that his name is listed as Frank. And I found this really interesting because when I first read about him, his name was just Francis, but clearly this shows us that his friends called him Frank throughout his life. I have since been able to find another small newspaper article which talks about him visiting a wedding and giving a gift. It also lists him there as Master Frank. It was from when he was a child. And I found this also really interesting because in my eyes, that then makes me think that his parents were calling him Frank from a young age. The reason the Freemason information was so interesting is because it was a tradition that was unknowingly carried on by his unknown son, Jack. My grandfather was also a Freemason. So I've really enjoyed learning about my great-grandfather Frank, and I cannot wait to keep learning about him and his family. I hope that we're able to tell more about his family and their stories in the years to come. Bye for now, and I'll see you in the next one.